Welcome to Mums at the Table. You are here with Rachel.
And Shona.
And Shona, I'm loving the bright red
I know.
here.
I thought it's getting wintry now. It's time to get some nice bright colours on. You and your grey.
No, I'm snuggling up, right?
Nice warm jumper.
Look at her, she's patting me.
No, but pretending to.
So as adults, we struggle to make the right decisions at the best of times. It can be very challenging. But how about for our kids, and how do we then teach them to make the right decisions?
Oh, that's a struggle even at the best of times, isn't it?
It is, and it's never an overnight thing. No. This is like a lifelong thing because we're still trying to make right decisions.
I do wish at times when my kids were growing up that I could have just dissected an older, wiser head and stuck it on their shoulders.
I know, on the young body.
Oh, that would have been so helpful.
What you want.
Yeah.
But it is a challenge, and I guess with one of my children, I'm actually just still at the stage trying to help her make a decision. She's always and ahhing.
Gosh, she doesn't take after her mother, does she?
The apple has not fallen far from the tree. But yeah, making the right decisions, helping them go through the information. Yeah. What did you do with your boys?
A lot of it was sitting down and chatting with them and waiting for them as they got a little older, so probably your eldest's age. It was about waiting for them to come to me so that they learned that they needed help. Because I think that's a big thing with decisions, is that you need to know that you need help.
Yeah, you do. And I think that's a learned thing as well sometimes, because hopefully we're exempling to our kids not to do everything on our own. Hopefully they're watching us ask for help as well, because that whole modelling thing comes into play there. But it can be very tricky teaching them to make the right decisions, because you know that temptation sometimes for them. And starting with a simple example is chocolate. So one of my daughters obviously has a sweet tooth. I can go through all the great and right information all I want, and she'll agree with me. Yeah. But for her to then turn around and have that backbone to do it herself, to face that temptation is really tricky.
But then she's got to learn sometimes, and our eldest was a bit like that as well. You know, temptation was a great thing for him. And so in the end, I just had to go, you're going to have to find out the hard way. Yeah. So go off and do it.
And some people
And if you're going to be sick from all that chocolate, then you're going to be sick.
Yes, she's gone for that option. But sometimes talking that information through is enough for some of our kids to jump on board.
But not always.
And for others, they're going to have to learn by making those mistakes. And so sometimes maybe creating some of those scenarios, talking through what they feel like. Role playing is also another good one I've done with my daughter, who likes to learn by mistakes, just so she gets an experience of what that's like.
And I think too, learning from your mistakes is a good thing, because it's not a bad thing, because you've still learnt something, which is always really good. And teaching them that if they make a mistake, that they can go to God with it. They can pray about it. It's not a bad thing to make a mistake.
Yep, it's not
so long as you learn from that mistake.
Yep, I think that's something we need to walk our kids through, just like everything else.
Hey, thanks for joining Dr. Simone and I for a chat. We're talking about coughs and colds. It's that time of the year where you need to get your sanitizer, you need to stock up on tissues. So how can we, I guess, look after our families during this time and kind of prevent these things from happening, if we can?
Well, look, there are things that we can do to minimise the risk. It's hard to prevent.
Totally.
Until children are of a certain age, which is normally around about, well, I joke and say 18, but maybe sort of 10 or 12, where they can reliably cover their mouths when they cough and then reliably wash their hands afterwards. These things are going to spread. So if you get kids together at preschool, at playgroup, at school, then these things are going to happen, and we just need to find ways to minimise the risk. So coughs and colds are things that, runny noses, obviously a cough. Sometimes those coughs can interrupt sleep, and sometimes they can progress to things like ear infections or throat infections or those sorts of things.
When should we look at maybe taking our children to the doctor and getting them checked up? Because some parents would say, oh, they've just got a runny nose, they're fine, or they've got a cough, but should we be, more vigilant when we see these first instances happening with our children?
So the first thing I'll say is trust your parent gut. If your kid is seriously unwell, if they are floppy or lethargic, if they have a high temperature, if they're not producing as much urine as they would normally do. So if they're in nappies and their nappies are so dry, or they're not drinking much fluid, then those are things that, regardless of how long they've been sick for, get them checked out. They are seek help now things. If your kid is, for the most part, a bit cranky but for the most part okay.
Active, a little bit active.
You know, interested in playing with their toys or watching a favourite TV show or something like that, then we can generally manage that with keeping their temperature down, keeping their fluids up.
So would you say give them some Panadol or Nurofen?
Absolutely. I
check their temperature
Check
first.
their temperature first. If they have a temperature but they're mostly okay and eating and drinking and not waking up in the middle of the night coughing and vomiting, then give them some Panadol. That brings their temperature down, it allows them to sleep, it allows them to rest better, and that helps them to get better. If you get to around about day 2 or 3 and they're not showing signs of improvement, then that's the time to get it checked out.
Right, because it could be develop into an infection.
That's exactly right. So we could be going from a virus that the body is going to sort out on its own into a bacterial infection that might need a little bit of extra help there. One of my little secret weapons that I often recommend to my patients is that if your kid is unwell, and if they're over around about 12 months of age, then they can really benefit from some liquid zinc supplementation, because that's a really good way of helping to boost the immune system, and it comes in pleasant vanilla flavours.
So should we be getting these multivitamins, these zinc things prior to this season upon us? Or
I reckon it's good to have a stash at home, and that way you know what you need to call on when your kid's unwell.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Simone. So there you have it, some great tips that may prevent your child from getting coughs and colds this season.
Hi everyone, we are back with another nutritional segment with Amanda. Hi Amanda.
Hi Gia.
And if you remember, we were talking about the Health Star rating last time, and we are going to talk about the nutrition information now and where we find that. So where do we find the nutritional information?
Yeah, so it's located either on the back of the product or on the side, this one. And the nutrition information panel and the ingredients list are usually located together.
They're together, okay. I like this one too because it's got a little bit at the front.
Yeah, it's really useful.
So this one has 2 columns. I think most of them do.
Yes.
So which one do we look at?
Yeah, so when comparing products, it's best to look at the per 100 gram column rather than the per serve column, just because different products have different serving sizes. So it's much easier to get a better comparison if you look at per 100 grams.
That's smart. So what things are we looking at? Like, so here, you know, you've got the energy, the protein. So what sort of things are we looking at?
Yeah, so have a look at the energy content. And if you've got 2 products, generally I would say to choose the product with the lower energy content, because that means that the sugar and the fat content should also be lower, because that's what contributes to the energy content.
Right. And this one has protein next?
Yes, protein. So again, with protein, I would be looking for one that has a good amount of protein, just because it helps to keep you feeling fuller for longer.
So how much? Because this one says 12.4. So what sort of?
Yeah, so it's hard because different products would have, you need different amounts of. Yeah, you'd be looking for a different number with the protein depending on the type of product.
So higher protein, lower energy so far. And what about fat content, like total fat content?
Yeah, so with total fat, looking for a product that has less than 10 grams of total fat per 100, but then looking at the type of fat as well. So checking where that fat is coming from. Is it from those good monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats? Or is it from the bad? Or is it from the saturated fat, which is not so good for us?
Right, okay. So this...
Well, I might take you back to the saturated fat quickly.
A good idea,
So with saturated fat, looking for something that's got less than 2 grams of saturated fat per 100 grams.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this one has carbohydrates and sugars next.
Yeah, so next I'd look at the sugars and try and choose a product that has less than 15 grams of sugar. So this one's got about 12 grams.
So that's on the border, or just under.
Yeah, so that's just under, and this one's well below
2.9, guys, for your children. If you don't want them to be hypo, just say. So sugars and fibre
I'd
is
look
after
at the fibre. So if it's got 8 grams or more of fibre per 100 grams, that's great.
Okay, so this one's 11 grams of fibre.
And this one is 10.5.
Okay,
so that's
it's pretty good.
They're both good.
And the next one is sodium.
Sodium, yeah, so sodium or salt. So if it's a low salt product, it would have less than 120 milligrams, and if it's moderate, less than 400. So low is best, obviously, or something that's less than 400.
Awesome. So what about the ingredients?
Yeah, so the main thing you need to know about the ingredients list is that the ingredients are listed in order of quantity.
Okay.
So the first ingredient, there's the most of this, the last ingredient,
And
there's
that's
the least
really
of
good
it.
to know.
Just looking for products with that don't have sugar, saturated fats,
As their first
or salt
ingredient.
within the first couple of ingredients.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you. I learned a lot in that little time. Thank you. See you guys next time with a new nutritional segment.
You want to keep it locked for this one because we're going to be talking about why our menstrual periods change, the flow in particular. Something that they don't really talk about, do they, Doctor?
Another often not discussed in public subject.
No.
But there's a whole industry out there that caters for it. You go, there's like aisles of it at the supermarket. So.
Yeah. And it's a part of life.
It's a part of life.
A lot of women go through it.
And I had one lady describe to me her life in 3 stages.
Yes.
Teens and 20s, it's all about relationship and new relationships and periods just sort of starting.
Right.
30s, you're having kids. 40s, then you're going to deal with bad periods.
Right.
And so all in that whole fertile time, your cycle can change.
So true. We joke about it as girls with my friends and talk about how when you're in high school, it's a different type of sanitary pad that you need to use. So when you're a mother, post-mother, it's like bring on the granny undies and all the rest of it.
In a wheelbarrow.
So. Yeah.
So why does it happen? It's not entirely understood, but basically when you're a tiny little teenager, and I say it because the uterus is really small, there's a small amount of area that actually bleeds, right? When you advance in life and you've had children, the shape of the uterus has changed. It's gone from holding a baby and come back down and done it a few times.
Right.
Several times sometimes. Sometimes you have twins in there, you know, and that's a real big stretch. And so the shape of the uterus changes and so the cavity is bigger. There's more area that has to shed off.
Right.
Interestingly,
Makes sense.
when you actually have a period, it's not actually blood coming out, it's actually the lining of the uterus.
Okay.
And so that kind of browny stuff is actually just cells that are coming out,
Okay.
not actually blood. But if you're actually bleeding heavily and it's clots and flooding, that's a different situation. You probably should see someone about that because there are things we can do to help with that.
Right.
So why does it change? Because the shape of the uterus is changing.
Yeah.
You may have a condition like a fibroid or some adenomyosis or other medical conditions that can be diagnosed with an ultrasound or other things. To help, or that could be causing you to bleed. And so by having a diagnosis, there's different treatment options that can be offered to you to help treat that if it's becoming a problem.
Yes, okay.
You know, and some women bleed so much that they become anemic, right? And
it's
don't
serious
just
business,
don't just sit there and suffer in silence. Get some help because, you know, don't just go and take some iron tablets to try and recover from it. If it's happening that much, you're bleeding too much and you need to get some help.
Yeah.
That's really the main reasons of why they change.
Okay.
There is a hormonal change towards the latter part of the 40s or whenever you're getting close to that menopause time when you're not producing as much progesterone and you're producing a lot more estrogen, and that can cause this imbalance in the hormones which makes the bleeding change a bit then. And, you know,
These are things that happen.
Common things that happen, but it doesn't have to be put up with if it's creating you some problems.
Yes, if it's creating pain.
If you can't leave the home because you're bleeding so much, you need to get some help, right? That's not right. And there are a lot of really good, doesn't even have to require surgery, there's a lot of other minor things that we can do to help. So don't suffer in silence.
Thanks so much, Dr. Peter Wood, for that insightful information. I know it's helped you at home. Don't forget, keep it locked here at Mums at the Table. Subscribe to our YouTube channel because we've got more information on this and other women's health issues that you don't want to miss out.
Okay, Rachel, today we've been talking about decisions and decisions about your children and decisions that we make and all these sorts of things. Now, an article I was reading a couple of days ago was, what do you do if your child's a bully? And that is such a huge topic these days.
It's probably not a topic that's discussed as much as how should your child handle bullying. So it's actually good that we're sort of acknowledging actually our kids might be the bullies and what do we do about it? I think it's a really important one because all of my kids are in primary school at the moment and
Is bullying a thing for you? Are your children being bullied or are they the bullies?
Oh, no, one's definitely, you know, sweet. She's lovely. And
Of course.
Yeah. The other one really will absolutely defend herself if she's attacked. But I don't want to be that mum that goes through cleanly going, oh no, my child would never do that. Like I don't want to be that naive because, and I could get in trouble for this, but I have seen some kids at my daughter's schools where I'm like, wow, I've watched how you treat people and I know your parents think you're an absolute angel. So I don't want to be that naive, and I would encourage all parents to go, hang on, I'm not watching my kid in a different scenario. I actually don't know what they're doing. I know their character and what they're likely to do, but you don't always know what they're up against.
Interesting thing. One of the things that I saw was that the mother of the bully made her child be friends with the child that she was bullying. So for a whole year, these two children had to be friends, and it started off by the mother inviting the child over, and they were to play and had to break bread together. And I thought, wow, that's really confronting.
That's I love that over a meal, like as you say, bread. I worked for an organisation and they worked with a charity to do a breakfast club at disadvantaged schools, and the schools notably, that the bullies and I guess the kids they were bullying, actually that decreased. They were sitting at a meal together in the morning, having breakfast at school, and that sort of started to dissipate a bit. I think acknowledging it and then actually doing something about it, not always saying, oh, what can I do to defend myself? Hang on, let's get to know them. Let's connect. Let's find out their story.
Because there's a reason, it's often said there's a reason why these bullies bully. So let's look deeper than just, oh, they're a bully, let's not get to know them. Because is that what Christ would do in our case?
Yeah,
no.
connections.
Connection. It's about a village.
And that's it from us today. You have a great week. We'll see you next time.
Bye.